Welcome to HD Camping Adventures. This week we're trading in our Jeep for our snowshoes. We're heading up towards Elfin Lakes and staying in the Alpine Shelter. This week, we're stepping into something new. Winter camping has never intimidated us. Cold temperatures and snowy landscapes are just part of the adventure. But there's one thing we've never taken on before, a full winter backpacking trip. Living where we do, surrounded by mountains and endless opportunity, it feels almost wrong not to chase every adventure we can. So before the sun even had a chance to rise, we packed our snowshoes, zipped up our packs, and set out into the cold with the kind of excitement that only a new challenge brings. Today's destination is Elfin Lakes in Garibaldi Provincial Park, a place we visited in both the heat of summer and the quiet of winter. But this time, we're doing something new. For the first time, we'll be spending the night inside the Alpine Shelter. Staying in the hut requires a reservation through the BC Parks website, and during the winter season, those spots can fill up quickly, so planning ahead is key. There's a short stretch of dirt road before reaching the trailhead, and then it's time to layer up and do the final pack checks. At this elevation, there's no snow at all. It's been a pretty mild winter here in the Pacific Northwest. Standing there in almost spring-like conditions, it's hard to imagine what might be waiting for us higher up. At this point, we really don't know what to expect once we reach the top. And just like that, the hike begins. After a quick stop to read through the rules and current advisories, we shoulder our packs and start making our way up the mountain. It doesn't take long for reality to set in. Winter hiking has a funny way of tricking you. It feels cold standing still, but once your legs get moving, it's a different story. Within 10 minutes, we're laughing at ourselves, realizing we're completely overdressed and scrambling to shed a few layers as we overheat. After a quick intermission and wardrobe adjustment, we're back on the trail. Not long after, we start to see the first patches of snow appear underfoot. At this elevation, it's still a mix of exposed gravel and hard-packed snow. We brought micro spikes with us just in case, but for now the trail feels manageable, so we decide to hold off putting them on. The higher we climb, the more the trail begins to transform into a true winter wonderland. Snow slowly takes over the forest floor and the landscape starts to feel completely different from where we began. Our first marked point of interest on the map is Brandvold Falls, and we plan to stop there to cool down and reassess whether it's time to strap on the snowshoes. Up until now, the trail winds mostly through the forest with no major viewpoints, just a steady climb beneath the trees. Let's freeze it right here for a moment and walk through a few of the key things we packed for this winter overnight. For bedding, we kept it simple. Our backpacking sleeping bags plus a down duvet for a little extra insurance. Everything fits nicely into the same packs we've trusted on past trips. First aid kit and water filter always. Coffee and tea, obviously. Freeze-dried meals for dinner, snacks to keep the engine running, and a jet boil with a couple of mugs for our tiny backcountry kitchen. Slippers for shelter comfort, a GoPro with battery packs and lights for filming, and of course our MSR snowshoes, which, admittedly, might be overdue for action. Alright, gear check complete. Time to get moving again. The next milestone on the trail is the Red Heather Shelter, sitting about a third of the way into the hike. It feels like the ideal place to pause, refuel with a snack, and give our legs a bit of a break before pushing further into the mountains. Surprisingly, we still haven't needed the snowshoes. With the trail mostly firm and packed, we can't help but wonder if they'll even come off our packs this trip. Know what these tracks are? Let us know in the comments. We've arrived at the Red Heather Shelter, and it makes for the perfect place to stop and rest. Inside, there's a large wood stove in the center, and it's actually the only place in the park where fires are permitted, with firewood provided by BC Parks. If you have the time, it's a great opportunity to warm up and recharge before continuing the climb. The shelter also has a gas stove available for cooking if you're planning a longer stop. For us though, it's a quick snack break and a much needed chance to get the packs off our shoulders for a bit. After a well-deserved break, we decide it's finally time to strap on the snowshoes. In the last stretch before the shelter, we were starting to sink a bit, and with more climbing ahead, it just makes sense to put them to use. Now, if we can just remember how to put these things on. The section just after Red Heather is where most of the elevation gain begins, so in preparation, we decide to leave our jackets in our packs to avoid overheating on the climb. In the winter, the trail follows a slightly different route that helps avoid some of the larger avalanche paths. That said, it's still important to understand that the winter route does pass through avalanche terrain, so proper training, awareness, and equipment are strongly recommended before attempting this trip. The winter route to Elfin Lakes is roughly 12 kilometers each way, and the difficulty can vary a lot depending on snow conditions and trail firmness. That said, most experienced hikers and snowshoers shouldn't have too much trouble on a clear day. As we continue climbing, the trees begin to thin out and the landscape slowly opens up. Before long, the views start to come alive, revealing just how vast and beautiful this area really is. It's absolutely stunning in every direction. We spend a lot of our free time in the mountains, and this winter has been noticeably low on snowfall, but Elfin Lakes seems to have a climate of its own. With every step higher, the snow gets deeper and the landscape starts to feel more and more like true winter. Then, off in the distance, we notice something shifting. A storm is rolling in, and it's moving fast, dumping snow as it pushes towards us. Although we love being out in the snow, we are happy to finally catch a glimpse of the ranger station off in the distance, and we know our home for the night isn't much further. The Alpine Shelter can accommodate around 30 people, and when it's full, it can make for a lively and sometimes less than quiet night. To give ourselves the best chance at a good night's sleep, we decided to plan this trip midweek. There's already someone here when we arrive, but with the timing and the weather rolling in, we're not expecting it to fill up. Let's give you a quick tour of the shelter. The main level opens into a surprisingly spacious kitchen area, complete with plenty of counter space and several gas stoves. BC Parks even provides large pots for melting snow into drinking water, something you'll likely be doing plenty of in winter. Scattered throughout the entrance and kitchen areas are multiple picnic tables, creating a comfortable communal space to cook, eat, and unwind. The shelter runs on a small solar system that powers a handful of lights on the main floor, and there's a timed gas heater that keeps the temperature hovering around 14 degrees Celsius, warm enough to feel comfortable without turning it into a sauna. Outside, there's a separate outhouse building with 4 stalls. Nothing fancy, just exactly what you'd expect if you've spent any time hiking in BC. With the tour wrapped up, it's time to swap out our wet boots and layers. The shelter has designated areas around the gas heater for hanging damp clothing, which is a thoughtful touch after a snowy hike like this. By now, we're absolutely starving, so we grab a seat and finally sit down for lunch. Next, we head upstairs to check out the bunk area. There's plenty of space up here, with double bunks on the bottom and single bunks on top. It's time to set up our bed for the night. We're sticking with our usual backpacking sleep system, air mattresses and sleeping bags. But even though the shelter has a heater, we wanted to be prepared in case it wasn't running. Instead of buying new, heavier winter-rated sleeping bags just for this trip, we're testing out a down-filled backpacking blanket rated to around minus 25 degrees. It'll be interesting to see how it performs overnight. If you're curious about any of the gear we're using, we've linked it in the description, and that's always a great way to support the channel. By the time we finish settling in, it's already starting to get dark outside. That's our cue to slow things down. A glass of wine to unwind and dinner on the go. Tonight, it's freeze-dried meals, so we fire up the jet boil and get some water boiling. We had a pretty late lunch, so we're not overly hungry, but after a day like this, something warm just feels right. After dinner, Dave puts his bartending skills to work and mixes us up a nightcap, the perfect way to wind down after a long day in the mountains. Before turning in, we make one final trip out to the washroom hut. By now, the snow is really coming down, and as we climb into our bunks, we can't help but wonder what everything will look like in the morning. We wake up early to a completely transformed landscape. Nearly a foot of fresh snow has fallen overnight, covering the mountains in a clean, untouched blanket of white. It's hard to imagine a better way to start the day. We slept about as well as you ever do in the backcountry, and the down blanket proved itself overnight. Warm, comfortable, and absolutely worth bringing. But before anything else, it's coffee time. With views like this pouring through the shelter windows, there's no better way to ease into the morning. It's always a little sad to pack up and leave, but it's time to get moving. We start loading our packs, ready to step back outside and begin the journey down the mountain. It took us about 5 hours to reach the shelter with breaks along the way, but with much of the return being downhill, we're expecting the hike out to be a bit quicker. Eventually, the snow begins to fade and the trail returns to gravel. We pull off the snowshoes and start the final stretch back to the Jeep. Our legs are tired, we're craving a real meal, and a nap doesn't sound like a bad idea either. But moments like this, snow-covered peaks, a night in an alpine shelter, waking up to fresh powder, are exactly why we keep coming back to the mountains. If you enjoyed coming along on this trip, we'd really appreciate a like. And if you love the outdoor adventures like this one, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. Since you are here, why don't you check out one of these videos? Thanks for watching.